The root causes, sometimes together with causes at higher levels, provide interfaces for solutions. If the identified chain of causes actually triggers the defined problem, then a solution should eliminate, adjust, or circumvent the root causes so that the problem frequency decreases. If I'm repeatedly late for work and I've relied on the rooster's wake-up call so far, I eliminate the rooster, of course it can live on, and use an alarm clock. If I arrive too late despite the alarm clock, I adjust the alarm time. If the traffic jam on the motorway then repeatedly prevents me from arriving on time, then I circumvent this motorway with a new route or take the train. Probably you and the experts in the team have already developed some suitable solution ideas in the course of the project. Therefore, it can be useful to combine the workshop for root cause analysis with the search for solutions. Basic creativity and moderation techniques can support this process. The 6-3-5 method is a structured brainstorming technique developed by Bernd Rohrbach. 6 participants write down 3 ideas each on a worksheet, for example within 5 minutes. Then the worksheets are passed to the respective neighbors. They are inspired by the existing ideas on the received sheet and add their own 3 connotations within 5 minutes. After each sheet has been passed 5 times, it arrives at the respective source again. The result after 6 rounds in 30 minutes is 108 ideas. The biggest advantage is that each participant must develop his or her own ideas in the first round, before being inspired and guided by the results of other participants in the following rounds. Ideas are not immediately torpedoed when they are expressed. The 6 thinking heads developed by Edward de Bono are based on the assumption that problem-solving processes are guided by 6 divergent cognitive-emotional motives. De Bono recommends separating these motives into phases in a workshop, so that they can develop their specific strengths and do not interfere with each other. To visibly structure the process, each of the phases is marked by a specific color, and in each phase only one of these colors should dominate. Blue, what is the topic, the target, and the overall picture? This color defines the framework of the workshop and focuses the participants in our situation on the task of finding solutions to root causes. White, what data is available, what are the facts? This color represents the information that is already available from the root cause analysis. Green, how can we change the situation, which solutions are appropriate? This color stands for creative solution finding, and this phase could be an interface for the 6-3-5 method. Black, what don't you like about the solution? What makes you skeptical? Why will it probably not work? In this phase, well-founded arguments against the solution ideas are to be expressed. Yellow, how can the green and the black be led to a practical solution? This color integrates the creative green and the pessimistic black. Red, how do you feel about the integrated solution? What does your gut tell you? This color represents emotional aspects and offers the possibility to rethink the solution or to accept it with a good feeling. It is important that these phases are sequentially kept apart in time, because people are good at criticizing and devaluing other people's contributions, often even before a sentence has been finished. This sometimes happens almost reflexively, out of habit, without the person thinking explicitly, "Hey, that's a great idea. It has only one disadvantage. It's not mine." Suggestions are quickly relativized by objections, expressed in killer phrases and justifications. And an extroverted black, for example, nearly always beats an introverted green. In the end, the proposed idea is often forgotten, nothing is written down, and they jump to the next idea, which could experience the same fate. In this case, it's all about power, about who will prevail, and not about creativity. A kind of blue can help to refocus on the situation and the targets. In situations like this, where there's a continuous back and forth between experts, I put on my virtual blue hat and ask, "Sorry, I've lost orientation. Is there something we should note on the flip chart?" Always keep, especially the green and the black phase, strictly separate. First creativity, then realistic objections, and finally integrated, accepted solutions. The morphological analysis by Fritz Zwicky seeks new design variants for given objects, such as products and services. For this purpose, all relevant attributes of the object and their conceivable characteristics are listed in a table. For example, if we want to create a new cookie, we first list all the relevant attributes that a cookie has, for example, dough type, basic flavor, diameter, shape, and topping. Then we break down these attributes into their possible variants. By new combinations of these characteristics, you could create a yeast dough, salty, with tomatoes topping. And you probably know these pizza cookies from your supermarket. A sophisticated and elaborate method for problem solving to overcome a trade-off or dilemma between contradictory objectives or elements is TRIZ, typically rendered as Theory of Inventive Problem Solving. It was developed by the inventor Genrich Altschuler. It takes a lot of expertise to use this method successfully. Thus, I don't want to go into that any further and also just briefly mention the design of experiments. The DOE is a powerful method for adjusting causes, for example to calculate the settings of influence variables with which the optimum result is obtained for one or more output variables. As a simple experiment we could, for example, take the type of chocolate as an influence variable and differentiate between full milk and dark chocolate. As a second influencing factor, we could vary the amount of chocolate on the three levels 80 grams, 100 and 120 grams. As output variables, we could have the taste evaluated and the cost of each cookie determined. An analysis of variance would now make it possible to determine those settings for a new cookie type within the scope of this design with the optimal results for taste and costs. In another experiment, you could determine the optimum baking temperature and duration in order to maximize the taste and minimize energy costs. For the typical solution search in a Six Sigma project, a combination of the 6-3-5 method and the 6 thinking heads efficiently leads to effective results. For the workshop, I draw a table on a flip chart. In the hierarchy tree of the root cause analysis for the problem cookie taste bad, in one branch we had identified these 3 causes as interfaces for solutions. Chef has too few opportunities to nibble on chocolate, manager has restricted the consumption of chocolate, and too much chocolate is unhealthy for young chefs. So we want to find a solution where our chef doesn't eat more chocolate than before, while preserving the integrity of the ingredients. Now I let the participants write down solutions for 10 minutes, with which the causes could be eliminated, adjusted or circumvented. Then the experts present their solution ideas, one after the other, and I write them in the second column of the table. Of course, you can also use tickers for this again. We got the ideas: keep the chef away from the bakery, checking the quantity of chocolate just before mixing it into the dough and if necessary compensating for the missing chocolate, and weigh more chocolate in advance to compensate for the chef's nibbling. After this green phase, the ideas in the black phase are now reasonably criticized. Chef will protest, considerably higher effort, further waiting times expected at the scale, and unclear how much more chocolate has to be weighed, thus the composition of dough will vary if the chef has different amounts of nibbles in each order. After a short discussion, one practicable solution is developed. Chef may weigh herself an extra portion of chocolate, and she will be also informed about the importance of the ingredients for the taste of the cookies. Then we go to the other branch and its root cause of the hierarchy tree. Information in recipe exceeds the chef's capabilities. The idea for the solution is proposed: translate standard recipes for children, detailed description of activities illustrated with images. Here the objection is raised that the acceptance will be low if the standard is simply developed externally and then prescribed to the chef. So as final solution results, chef documents the baking process for standard recipes with her own photos and drawings. And the manager coaches the creation of this standard baking book for our little chef. We then repeat this procedure for the root causes of the remaining problems. And after the workshop, I transfer the results into Sigma Guide. First, I search for the related problem and then calculate or estimate the quality costs per year resulting from the problem. This should be a justified proportion of the quality costs already specified in the project definition. I estimate that the bad taste of the cookies costs us about €100 per year. Then I transfer the root causes from each branch of the hierarchy tree to one cell for the problem in question. Next, I estimate how strong the problem is determined by its root causes. That's about 75 and 5% respectively. So for both root causes about 80%. The sum of determination indicates the portion how strong all root causes of the branches together determine the problem. Next, I transfer the identified solutions into the corresponding cells and estimate the benefit of the respective solutions, i.e. the contribution of each solutions to eliminate, adjust or circumvent the related root cause. And I do the same for the effort for each solution, i.e. the necessary consumption of resources to implement the solution. The resulting effect reflects the product quality cost times determination of the problem. This means that the quality costs of the problem could be reduced by this amount if the root causes could really be controlled by the solution. Although the information at this stage is only a rough estimate, it can give you an initial assessment of the solutions. Finally, the rank of a solution results from its effort-benefit ratio. The higher the benefit of a solution is in relation to the effort to implement the solution, the higher is its ranking position. The results of this evaluation are summarized in the chart Solution Selection. It shows all solutions relative to their respective effort and benefit. The size of the bubbles corresponds to the effect of the solution, i.e. the reduced quality costs. Here you should focus on the solutions of the lower right triangle, where the benefit is higher than the necessary effort. Nevertheless, there may be reasons to choose solutions of the left upper half triangle as well. In our case, the advantages of the complex standard will probably pay off in the long term. After the development and selection of suitable solutions, we will now derive concrete measures. We will identify and minimize their risks by countermeasures and assign responsibilities and deadlines.